that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, messy mom. Hi, messy mom. Hi, tired mom.
Hi.
Anxious mom.
Crazy mom.
Focus for January 2022. Finances and budgeting. So currently my situation is such that I try every week to do something with my finances, whether it's putting in savings or giving to charity, or paying a little extra on something. Like, it's not really a hard fast rule. It's like every week, what can I afford to pull out? I used to be way better about it, but I haven't had a paycheck up until a couple years ago, for 14 years. So then I wasn't in charge of budgeting on any level in our family, other than this is my grocery budget and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be able to do more. And going over budget, well, it's fun in the moment because I have low impulse control. Just saying. But it's definitely my stomach twists and knots after, and I worry and fret, and it doesn't feel good. So I would really love a little more control over my impulses and be able to just contribute a little more to our households rather than having all that responsibility on my husband's shoulders. It'd be nice to take some on mine and be able to take that off of him. He's such a good provider and he's such a good planner and stuff. I'd love to be able to meet him. And Catherine, you were saying you had some tips and tricks. So that's kind of where I'm coming at January from. What about you, Kim?
I love doing stuff with budgeting, actually. I rock the plan, like making of the plan.
You're a good planner.
I'm a good planner.
She's a good planner.
I like writing things down. I like making really detailed plans. And I suck on the follow through. So, yeah, every year, every single end of December, beginning of January, I'm working on a plan and writing it all out for how much money I'm going to save and how doable it is and all that kind of stuff. And, well, my savings are at zero right now after all these years. I have that book that you gave me. Actually, I don't remember what it's called, True Wealth or...
Yeah, True Wealth Formula.
So, yeah, that's definitely in my January plan to actually read that book that you gave me how many months ago? So, yeah, going to work on that. And I actually used to have a lot of debt. So, one positive, I don't have savings, but I'm debt-free. So,
Okay.
yay! But
Yeah,
that took some good planning and follow through.
Right.
So, now I just have to take it a step further.
That's a win.
Yeah. And you've had a lot of shifts. So that's a huge win.
Yeah.
That's a huge win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was afraid of money. I was never good at planning it. I was never good at, I was just winging it all the time. My method was just not spend more than we made. And we were fortunate enough to have enough income that was very doable. Mm-hmm. But then a few years ago, 2016 actually, is when I really got, I was introduced to the True Wealth Formula, and it made me realize that my system of winging it wasn't awesome. I actually realized that I was afraid of money. I was afraid of, I had my own poverty mindset is, if I just spend it, then I don't have to worry about it. I was afraid to have money because I grew up with this idea of it's easier for the camel to get in.
Oh,
right. Through the eye of the needle.
Then a rich man to enter into heaven, and the love of money is the root of all evil.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and anyone who's not aware, those are biblical verses. There is a premise to that.
Right. But so that made me afraid. That combined with seeing wealthy people who didn't seem to value family,
Yes.
or, wealth was easier than family, maybe I should put it that way. That made me afraid of money. And I was afraid that if I had money, that I would become greedy, or I would become a crappy parent, or, there was all these ideologies and fears.
Wealth has a stigma.
Right? It does.
It does.
But when I was introduced to the True Wealth Formula, then that really helped me to realize that money is a tool just like anything else. It can be used for good and it can be used for evil. So it's not the money itself That's the problem. It's what we do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, it's the love of money that's the root of all evil, not
Yeah.
the money itself, right? Like anything, if we love anything
Mhm.
in a way that we shouldn't, it
Yeah.
can be a problem, right? So the last few years especially have been a real journey of learning how to use what we have in a much better way.
Quick question about that.
Yeah.
So, like Kim, you're a single income family, and it's your income.
Yeah.
So then, the formula. When you're talking formula, are you meaning like, will this work with any amount of money, large amounts or smaller amounts? Like, can Kim do as much with this as a dual income family?
Yes, absolutely.
Yay!
That's what I love about the system is that
Okay.
it works on percentages. And that's what really helped me because part of my overwhelm is that our income changed. Every month it was different. So when we first got married, we were both making income. And then when we started having babies, then it was just his income.
Mm-hmm.
He had 2 different incomes, but like the farm income, one month you have lots of money and the next month you have negative lots of money.
Yeah.
So that was really hard for me to wrap my head around. So when we started working in percentages, that made a world of difference. And even now, 4 years later, I want to share this just so that you know that it's not like a quick fix and solve everything. You've got it all figured out. Like we're still figuring out exactly how to apply it, but we're digging into the concepts and applying them. And then as we grasp them deeper, you can apply them a little bit deeper. But as it stands right now, we have separate incomes. My husband has income for the farm, and then I have my personal income. And we find it still works better if he kind of does his and I do mine, and we're not overseeing each other's, and I'm not making sure that he's putting his 10% here and his 20% there. I'm just learning to be faithful with what I have and steward what I have, right?
Yes.
Like, hopefully you can talk about those things.
Yeah.
But you can't take responsibility
Yeah.
for your spouse.
So what
Exactly,
you're
yeah.
saying is I cannot be in control of my husband's paycheck.
Correct.
Noted.
Unless he puts you in charge of it.
Yeah.
Which some people are in that
Yeah,
position,
some-
right?
My parents, that's how it worked. My mom was in charge of a lot of stuff until dad decided otherwise. If he needed or wanted something, then he would kind of leave it with mom because she was more. She had a little more money smarts, and she dealt in percentages too. So that's really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
That this is the formula.
Yeah.
What is the formula? And I'm wondering, what can I have a very small wage. So if I'm only in control and I'm only stewarding that small wage, what can I do with my small wage
Mm-hmm.
to be a better steward?
So the way the percentages work is, and you're going to have to work with this a little bit based on, because like your income isn't necessarily money that you expect to live off of,
No,
right? It's kind of
Okay.
bonus income.
It is.
In a way.
Yeah.
So generally, the main system is 70% is your living expenses, but you might want to shift that a little bit because
Living expenses are not
if that's
usually
already taken care of, then you can do that differently.
Yeah.
But for Kim, ideally 70% of your income would be your living expenses. That's groceries, that's bills, all the things.
Yeah.
And then 10% is debt repayment. So if you have any debt, which you don't have to worry about because you don't have any debt, yay, right?
I want to go back to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, someone watching might actually be like, okay, well, you guys aren't all swimming in debt. But I was, so I can go back to that in a minute.
And in a lot of ways we are, because we have farm debt.
Yeah.
So like we've
That's a lot of
got
debt.
some big debt.
Yeah.
But so that's where we are actually applying a large portion of our living expense into our debt
Repayment.
repayment.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm saying like
You can
there's
pull
these
it
basic numbers, but you have to shift a little bit based on your situation. But those basic concepts are still very applicable. So yes, 70% living expense, 10% debt repayment, and honestly, you could certainly apply more, like I just said. 10% is wealth building, not savings.
70% living expenses, 10% debt repayment, and 10% wealth building.
Yes.
So we got another 10% in there.
And that is tithe.
Okay.
That is giving. And
So for
And that-
those who don't know what tithe is, giving to a charity. right?
Giving to the poor and needy.
Yes.
And so this is a biblical principle. I understand these biblical principles to be like laws of nature, like gravity. Either whether you believe in it or not, you can't fight gravity, right? Like it's just a law built into the universe, right? And I actually do believe that like when God created the universe, he created these laws within it.
I never thought about the money part, the tithing part as that.
Right? And that's part of what I learned through the book. Actually, that's one of the things that he talks about is like these are just laws that God created within the universe, and he tells us them. He says, "Give to the poor," and I think one of the best things about tithing is that it keeps us humble.
Yeah.
It keeps us from loving money, right?
Yeah.
Because when you give that 10%, whether that 10% is a small amount or a huge amount, like that's going to change.
Yeah.
And we're in a season where that 10% is actually a pretty substantial amount of money. It can hurt no matter what, whether it's $100 or $100,000, that 10% can hurt. And it's supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Because like, that's what I mean. It's going to keep you humble.
Grow your faith too.
Right. And
yeah.
the biggest thing is actually, I wouldn't even say that it hurts at this point. It forces you to hold onto your money loosely, right? So the concept behind it is remembering that absolutely everything that we have, our home, our family, our gifts, our personalities, our bodies, like everything that we have is a gift from God. Every breath that we take is a gift from God. Every dime that we make is a gift from God. And it comes from his storehouse. And so when we give that 10% back, we're reminding ourselves that like, this isn't my money that I earned. So that's the beautiful thing about tithing is it keeps us from falling into that trap of this is my money and hanging on to it tightly.
It stops us from being Scrooge.
Yes, exactly. But on the flip side, tithing can also become legalistic. And if it becomes legalistic, then we need to let go of that. You miss the point. Like if it's just, I'm giving my 10% and you better give your 10%, like that's the problem that we can have. And that's why I say it's best if I manage my income and if I want to stick to that strict 10% or if I want to give more, that's mine. And I'm not hounding my husband to make sure that he's doing his tithing, right? Because legalism totally messes up that whole system.
So for anyone who is unaware of what legalism represents to a Christian, it means following the rules just for the sake of it being an arbitrary rule,
right?
And not actually following it for the heart of the reason.
Exactly.
When God has given us these rules, it's not a bunch of do's and don'ts. If it's do's and don'ts, it's legalistic and legalism. The do's and the don'ts are, if you want an abundant life that you're thriving in, here are my laws, such as tithing. And when we do it with joy in our hearts and we just move forward and go, God, like, what are you going to do with me? Then there's a spirit of giving and a spirit of following God. And we call that following the spirit and doing things in the spirit of the law as opposed to the legalism of it.
Right? Because then we can get to that place where I just remember those verses where God says, like, I don't want your sacrifices. Right? Like,
Yeah.
Because he's not going to bless those sacrifices if they're given in the wrong heart.
It's not about doing the right thing all the time. It's about having a heart of wanting to love others and love God.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
that's a good summary.
Yeah. So I try to keep in mind kingdom building. You know, and my kingdom, is my heart building the kingdom, or is my heart just following the rules so that I am given more money? Right? Because there's that whole prosperity gospel too. Like, just give, and God's going to give that right back to you.
Please help me fund my $1 million jet, and then you'll be taken care of.
Right? Yeah. Or even just give and like it's a lottery ticket. Well, if you give this, well, God's just you're gonna like open your mailbox one day and there's gonna be a bunch of money. Nope. That's not how it works. It's diligence.
Although I do have to say, this we could cut out, but I do have to say, my parents frequently didn't have enough money, and they always gave their 10% to the penny. Yeah. And there were so many times we'd get a random check in the mail that met our needs. And
Oh, for sure.
Dad would always say, it's because I always give. But he didn't do it because, like, if I give, then God will
Yeah,
give me back.
Exactly.
That's
He
the
did
difference.
have- He
Yeah.
had this joy about giving, and
Yeah.
then when he did receive back,
Yeah.
and we did, we always had our needs met,
Mm-hmm.
even though we had no idea where it was coming from.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's your spirit versus the law.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's so important to, like, if that's what people take away from this,
Mhm.
that's what I really hope that they get from this, that it is about where your heart is at with it all.
So,
I've historically been really irresponsible with money, actually.
too.
I've never earned a ton of money.
neither.
So my irresponsibility was like in smaller increments, but just as detrimental,
Right.
I think. And I didn't look at it as I might have written the budget and then ignored it
Mm.
because, well, now,
Yeah.
oh, I just got $280 for my GST return. Cool.
Right.
Whereas, like, instead of looking at the budget and being like, amazing, because I was a bit short in my budget this month, it was like, we're getting pizza. You know, like I wasted money on the dumbest things like that.
Yes.
And then, or I would use the money that I had budgeted for the power bill. I would use that month for something else. And it could have even been a really good thing. Like the kids, this child now has grown out of their winter boots. I'm going to use this. I will pay the power bill double next month. And so then I would get to the point of regularly getting the phone call. And it takes like 3 months to get that phone call, right? So 90 days behind. I regularly got it. I got bill collectors phone calls daily because once you're in that position, it's a daily thing, sometimes multiple times a day.
Okay. Yeah.
The phone, maybe that's my problem with talking on the phone. The phone has this negative
We have
connotation.
now figured out why you don't like making phone. But why don't I like making phone calls?
Yeah, you didn't have bill collectors? Okay. Well, no, I had bill
Once.
collectors.
I have one.
My credit is being built back up now. And, but yeah, I just really was irresponsible with the little bit of money that I had. I didn't take responsibility for it. And now I have. And that took a long time. That took a few years, probably, I would say 3 years to get kind of built back up to where there is no debt. I also don't own things. You know, I do have a vehicle that I own. And that took a while too. That took, 6 years to pay that off. But I don't own a house. But I have a house, that I'm renting. But now I am ready to move into that next step of figuring out. I would like to own my own house.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to be more on the ball with the little bit that I myself am responsible for. My husband is responsible for the majority of stuff. He does very well. I don't want to touch that. I really don't. I mean, if he says, "Here, Janet, you're doing great with your tiny little paycheck," and ask me, I would, and I know I could. I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. I'm not so impulsive that I can't maintain control. It's just that, like you said, it's kind of a bonus income, and it comes in handy when dental work has to be done, or I can get little luxuries that we couldn't afford before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to budget for cheese as much. I know that sounds so silly, but before, it's like, sorry, the cheese budget is done for the month, and we're just cooking without cheese.
Yeah.
The kids have not left home yet, despite the lack of cheese. But now I can, I don't have to be as careful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still careful, but yeah, it would be nice to be more responsible for what I have. And that's also a biblical principle that I think that we lose sight of, is that God has gifted us these things. He's gifted us, like you said, our personalities. He's gifted us different talents. Some people it's musical or artistic. Other people are, have other talents. And He has gifted us with material things. Some people more than others. But whatever it is, that small amount, we are expected to be responsible for it. Mm-hmm. We are expected to be responsible in the little. Mm-hmm. And then when we are responsible in the little, sometimes God continues to gift us these things because He's asking more and more of us, right? And that's not like he might not, but it is a principle that it's like, okay, so I'm being more responsible in a lot of other areas in my life, because I am traditionally a very irresponsible person. why. But I would like
Just
to,
about some things. You're very responsible with others.
yeah. But I'm pretty loosey goosey with my money. And like when you said before, it was just don't spend more than you have. That's it. That's kind of that. And I'd look at it and be like, okay, well, I spent this, and this is what's going in next week. So therefore, I can put $20 in the mutual funds, right? Like I based it off of we're not running out, so now I can.
Yeah.
As opposed to being proactive
Mm-hmm.
and responsible. So that's my goal. Is I'd like to be more proactive with what I have, because I would really love to be able to. Here's my goal. I'd love to be able to have my own credit card that I'm not scared of. I've been terrified of having my own credit card. So my goal, I'm hoping, is to have my own very small credit card, and then to utilize that credit card while making sure there's no interest paid.
Mm-hmm.
Using your methods, because you have been talking to me about how you use your credit card to make your payments and then pay off the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Because then you get all the benefits
The points
and the points and the
or
whatever.
cash back. Or,
And if you're responsible with it, then it's a lot less work than, keeping your little envelopes, which I've had before too.
Yeah.
The
It's
envelopes
made it really easy.
So that's my goal.
Yeah. I just
This
put
year.
everything on the credit card and then pay it off at the end of the month.
And not just the payment due, pay it off.
Yes,
That's
100%.
the goal.
Yeah.
100%.
If you can't pay it off, you do not make that purchase. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I want to leave you with a couple of simple tips that might help. First, I'll say one thing that I really love about the True Wealth formula is he talks a lot about personalities. That's one of he has a whole module on personalities and knowing who you are, knowing your personality, knowing your temperament, and learning how to risk manage our own tendencies. So that's one, I love that because I like the exciting, I like the big risk. That's my personality. So I have no problem dumping a pile of money into an investment that I might make money on.
Yeah.
So learning how to hedge that tendency is something that's really, really valuable.
I might need some.
Right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I've also learned is my personality, I think each one of us, and I think most people need a fun budget.
Yes.
So when you're making those different budgets and figuring out those percentages, having that fun budget built in right away, then then you can kind of see that building a little bit and it's like, okay, that's my fun money. So when you have that impulse to buy something, okay, is that money in the fun budget? And the other question you can ask yourself too is one strategy that I've implemented, and I've even implemented this with my kids, is okay, if you still want that in 30 days, then let's do it. But if you don't want it in 30 days, obviously it wasn't as awesome as you feel like it is right now.
Yeah. It's okay to walk away and come back.
Right? And most of the time you've forgotten about it, 5 days later, let alone 30, right?
Yeah.
So what you can do is, if you see something that you really want, you can write it down. Or just make a mental note, okay, if I still want this in 30 days, I'm going to come back with my fund budget and I'm going to purchase this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one tip that I found really helpful, just to reduce how much random crap you buy, because the whole freaking world is designed to sell you crap.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that, think about the tills when you go to pay for stuff,
Yeah.
all that junk, right? And it's all that kids hype,
It's always my favorite chocolate bars.
right? And your kids, right? They're like, oh, can we have this, right? This, So just even that would help me, because I'm kind of a buck the system kind of person. So once I realized that the whole system is designed to take my money, then I was like, I'm going to keep my own money. Thank you. And then the other thing, kind of going back to what you were saying about the cheese budget, is resisting this idea that we need everything. We live in a world, in an era where we think we need so much stuff. Well, I'm out of milk. I need to buy milk. If you're out of milk, just wait. You
don't have a baby on a bottle,
right?
You can do a few days without milk.
Exactly, right?
Sure.
So one thing that's really helped is going grocery shopping once a week.
Yeah.
And if you run out of stuff, so be it. There's probably enough stuff in your pantry to get you through the week.
Yeah.
So that has really helped us going once a week because and if you it's a lot about mindset too, right?
Yeah.
Like because you would use somebody else's credit card and you'd pay them back cash. It's the same
Always.
thing.
Yeah,
It's the same
exactly.
thing. It's just like
It's not like I'm not
borrowing the money from the
capable.
credit card
Mhm.
I'm
and I'm
just
paying it back.
scared of it.
And if you need to put like reminders in your phone, hey, this is due on this date, put
Yeah.
those reminders in your phone.
Those
Which I
wouldn't
will
have
need.
worked for me. I think that I needed to, like, there's different areas of your life that mature at different times.
Yeah.
And most of them won't mature until you decide that I'm going to grow up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So that
I'm an
wouldn't,
adult,
the
damn it.
reminders, I've done all those things.
Mm.
They would not have worked for me. I hadn't decided to grow up and be a big girl in those areas.
Right?
So I have no credit cards still.
Yeah.
I actually think I could now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, there's nobody saying that you need to have a credit card. Like, if you know you function better without one, then maybe it's not the worst thing to know.
I've gotten by
No.
on 3 years with a debit Visa.
Because it's so easy to type a number in online
Mhm.
and waste your money. So I'm actually thinking that might be why, which is why I thought, if I keep it blocked, that's not a bad thing. Whereas if I get a $500 credit card, then I am capped,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I had that for a while, the $500.
Then I am capped. And
But then I lived as if I had an extra $500.
I know,
but
right?
That's
The
the
mentality,
mindset
like,
I have
it
to
burns
make
a
sure
hole.
to avoid.
Yeah.
And I do think I'm grown up enough,
Mhm.
almost 40, that I can do it now. But we'll see. And that's the other reason why I want to share it with you. And I have to talk to my husband. I haven't actually talked to him about this idea, and I want his permission because he is way better about impulse buying than I am. So much better. So I'm gonna defer. Look that word up if you don't know what it is. It's a great word.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna defer to his financial wisdom.
Mhm.
If he says, actually, I'm not comfortable with that, I'm gonna listen to that.
Respect that, yeah.
But I'll find just a different method, which I can. But that is my goal. I'm going to talk to him about it, and I would like to try it. I would like to try the credit card, and I would like to try taking over a payment or two on that credit card.
Mm.
Maybe because he pays everything. He has that whole responsibility.
Mm.
So if I can be like, I want to be in charge of the power bill.
Mhm.
I used to,
Mhm.
like before I started having kids,
Right.
these were my bills to pay. These were we had joint accounts, everything, but I took care of this, he
Yeah.
took care of this, we
Mhm.
did it together,
Yeah.
and
That's
I really
cool.
liked that.
Mhm.
So then, now I have this little income. Maybe I can take one of the bills off his hands.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Maybe it's the phone bill or the electrical bill.
Well, and one thing I can say is that spoke volumes to Troy when I started implementing these things, and I didn't try and tell him, hey, this is what we're going to do. I just started doing it on my end. And when I said oh, well, we have this money for the mortgage, he was just kind of
We do.
okay,
Yeah.
right? And that's what really helped him get on board with the training that I was doing, because he's
Oh,
like,
that's
okay,
cool.
she's doing this is really shifting things for her, and it did cause me to grow up and gave me skills and abilities and mindsets that really helped me break free from the negative cycles that I was in.
Cool. I'm excited to
2022 is going to
grow
go
in
much
this area.
better.